Good morning, everyone. I'm John Rome, Deputy CIO at Arizona State University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on modernizing PDF accessibility. First, I want to take a moment to express how incredibly proud I am of our team at the AI Cloud Innovation Center, and our talented ASU students have worked tirelessly to deliver this groundbreaking solution. What they've accomplished is not only incredibly innovative and leverages cutting-edge AWS technology, but it's also going to create more inclusive learning environments for students and across Title II institutions nationwide. This work represents the best of what ASU stands for, innovation that serves a greater purpose. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to the presentations ahead. Now over to you, Colleen.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, John. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate all of the attendees for showing up today to learn more about this particular solution. My name is Colleen Schwab. I am a global innovation strategist for AWS, but I also get to serve as the lead at the Arizona State University Artificial Intelligence Cloud Innovation Center that is powered by AWS. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the AI CIC is what you'll hear us call it on this particular webinar. But really, we want to make sure that you're getting what you need to learn more about this particular solution, how we developed it, and how you can customize it to meet your needs. But first off, there's going to be a little bit of housekeeping. So this webinar will last 1 hour. We'll leverage the Q&A feature of this webinar for questions. When you see others that post a question in that, you are more than welcome to upvote that question. We'll make sure we get you answers to those. We'll try and cover as many questions as possible on this particular webinar, but know that at the end, some of them, we may not get to all of them, but we will follow up with an FAQ document that has answers to the various questions. We want to make sure there's as much information out there about this particular solution and how you go about customizing or troubleshooting. There'll be 4 different speakers on this webinar, and this webinar will be recorded. And so we will then be adding it to YouTube and share out that YouTube link to all of you via email so that you have access. You can reference any of the content that you may need. These are the webinar speakers that we have for you today. So you've got myself, who will be talking about the solution and also moderating this webinar. We've got Jonathan Thurston who is a fellow from G3ict. We've got Corey Tressler from The Ohio State University, and Willie Pung from the CSU Fullerton campus. So definitely excited to have these leaders, but know that also behind the scenes, we've got an incredible group of people that are going to be working on answering your Q&A questions as well. So we'll try and do both audio and in the chat. We'll be answering your questions. We've got Arun from our Cloud Innovation Center. He's the Senior Solutions Architect at the AI CIC and at AWS. We've got Greg Ritter. He is a strategy lead for research, data, scholarly publications, and libraries. He's incredible and knows all about the solution, worked hand in hand with us on it. We've got Tom Orr. He's our Senior Program Manager at AWS. And Rachel Hayden, who she is our Program Manager at the AI CIC, but works on the ASU side of the house. So without further ado, I want to turn the mic over to Jonathan Thurston, and he's going to tell us a little bit about building inclusive environments in planning and implementation and how that starts now.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. I'm in California. It's great to meet everyone. It's an excellent opportunity to talk about accessibility programs and, of course, Title II. It's just around the corner. What does it even mean? And what do we have to do to get prepared for it? So technically, Title II codifies the standard for accessibility for the first time. And this is really important because there's actually something to measure against legally. And so it's WCAG 2.1 AA is the standard, right? How do you get in front of that? How do you plan for this? The Title II update impacts websites, mobile applications, documents, and third-party assets as well. This is a lot to cover. Most schools have not really embraced accessibility fully to this point yet, and now is the opportunity to do so. What is the best strategy to get in front of accessibility? Well, frankly, it's to build a plan. You need to have a good plan to understand what you need to do. But to understand what you need to do, you need to understand where you are. So often the first step is sort of a review, a sort of deep dive into where you are. One really important aspect of working in this space is to partner with folks with disabilities. And I encourage all of our educational institutional partners to embrace working with folks with disabilities to help inform what your future plan is going to be. Every plan is going to be different. Every institution is at a different level of maturity for accessibility. But again, the best sort of plan to get in front of it is to understand where you are, and then by extension, understand what you need to do. It's going to be a really interesting situation in a couple of months because most schools are not aligned currently with the standards, or frankly, even close. But again, the best way to help your students, your faculty, and your whole community at your institution is to plan for accessibility, understand where you are, and then use that to inform what you need to do next. Again, it's a very sort of comprehensive look at your institutional accessibility state, but you have to look at all these different things like the websites, all the mobile applications, all the PDF documents that you have, as well as those third-party tools. So we're here to talk today about some of those solutions that are going to help your institution. But again, I hope that everyone will remember the best protection is to have a plan. Pauline.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate that. There is this strong sense of urgency that people must take, and we're excited to be a component in that planning and in that solution. So moving on to a little bit more about this particular solution in general. First and foremost, as John had mentioned early on in this webinar, is that this was created by the AI Cloud Innovation Center at Arizona State University. I want to make sure that everybody understands just very briefly what this Cloud Innovation Center is that this is a public-private partnership that AWS has with a few different universities in the United States. The idea behind this is that we solve real-world challenges that are being faced by public sector organizations today. And we do that by leveraging the insight and power of students and AWS technology to solve those problems. And then we open source those solutions, making them available to anyone and everyone all across the globe to catalyze the process to innovation. My favorite thing is waking up every day, to live out the mission or the vision of the Cloud Innovation Center, which is to inspire and empower everyone to solve business problems with technology. Open source technologies are a great way of doing that. And this PDF remediation challenge that Title II institutions and lots of other people were facing is a perfect example of where the power of the Cloud Innovation Center can be leveraged. First and foremost, we looked at the barriers to regulation adherence that people were facing. And this was very standard across the board, that there were budget barriers and operational barriers. And we learned and we talked to many different institutions, and they all had these. They all had a similar common thread pain point, and we were able to address those. But the first person that really brought us this problem statement was Corey Tressler with The Ohio State University. And Corey's going to talk to you much more about what The Ohio State University is doing around this topic and how they're leveraging this technology. So I'm not going to steal any of that thunder from Corey, but know that that is how we function at the Cloud Innovation Center. So I challenge you that while we're talking about PDF remediation, know that we have many, many other open source solutions available to address common thread pain points that are felt by everything from higher ed, nonprofit, federal government, state and local government, you name it. So leveraging open source technology, why this has become so powerful. But first and foremost, I talk a lot to a lot of people, and I want to make sure people understand what open source exactly means. Know that everything that we create at the Cloud Innovation Center lives on GitHub under an MIT license, the most open of open licenses. So whether you are a technology company or a higher ed institution or a government entity, you can take this technology. You can even lay your own IP on top of it and commercialize it. We are here to support those journeys and those motions. And it also gives a lot of flexibility for people to take this code and be able to morph it and add on the bells and whistles. A lot of times what I say is that we built an engine. But if you want to have a different color paint on the outside, if you want, tinted windows or a sound system, whatever it might be, you can layer on those components to the solutions that we build at the Cloud Innovation Center. And we are here to help you as a resource in doing so. So there's a lot of different benefits to this. Know that we've got 2 open source solutions. We originally, in January of 2025, we launched the PDF to PDF remediation solution open source. And then we had also heard from many institutions that were wrestling with PDF to HTML. How do we do this? Where should we leverage it? And that is where we also deployed a open source PDF to HTML remediation solution and kind of combined those two in our testing website. So what I'm going to show you right now is a brief video demo. You can also access this video demo on YouTube to review it at any moment. But know that this PDF remediation solution, we kind of have provided resources to break it down step by step so that you are able to better leverage this technology in your own way, in your own image and likeness. It does remediate PDF documents towards that WCAG 2.1 AA guidelines. We've got the two different solutions. This is the website, remediate-pdf.com. My colleague Tom is throwing some links in the chat so that you can also leverage it, but know that you can test these solutions at no cost to you. Our testing site was designed with just a simple user interface. It is not designed to have an enterprise grade level user interface. So we encourage everybody to sort of think about that if you take our UI and you implement it in your own environment, it can work, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. That is exactly where you want to be thinking about how you can leverage open source technology and enhance it. This is the particular testing website where you will go, you will log in, and you can see here that you've got the two different options for PDF to HTML or PDF to PDF, where you can test either one. You cannot bulk upload on this particular website. And so what you are seeing here, again, a reminder is that we have created the engine that powers this particular solution. But yet, if you were to take this into your own environment, you have the ability to customize all aspects of this UI to meet your needs. If you want to add something like a chargeback model or anything like that to this, you can add that. We also have these different requirements on the side here. Note that these requirements are just for the testing site. You can wipe all those requirements away or those limitations and have things like bulk upload, have large scale documents, whatever you might want to that. This PDF to PDF solution leverages both AWS and Adobe API, and it does integrate the Adobe API checker into it as well. Again, in helping you to sort of see that before and after remediation, understand where you as a human may need to step in. I often state that technology, this isn't flawless because PDF documents are not all created the same. And so there is a requirement that you may need to step in and with documents, verify them and be able to assure that they are fully compliant. But what it is doing, it is streamlining your process to remediation and improving accessibility of these documents. So this one just showed you the PDF to HTML. The idea behind here, this is also another important page to understand the output formats for PDF to PDF. That shows the document does not change. With PDF to HTML, right, it's removing some of those formatting aspects, really enabling the online ability to have a screen reader grab that content in the proper order and format. And so these are just some important considerations to be had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my screen back up here and I'm going to show you some additional slides where we can walk through some of the additional components of this solution. That is really important to share for everybody. Because this particular, we received so many questions coming in about this solution. So thank you to everybody who submitted them. But we wanted to make sure to address a few things based on those questions. One, for the PDF to PDF solution, it does leverage both AWS and the Adobe technologies. And so for this, we're leveraging Amazon Bedrock. We are leveraging generative AI in this particular solution. The primary area where generative AI in the solution is being leveraged is around alt text generation. Know that when we did the alt text generation, this is leveraging the Amazon Nova Pro model. We're really highlighting that it's not just looking at the image, it's also looking at the words around the image to improve those contextual clues to enhance alt text. Many people ask me, hey, can we customize the length of alt text? We say, absolutely. You can customize lots of aspects of that alt text to meet your organization's requirements or preferences. That's through prompt engineering. it's a great opportunity for you to, to learn more about that, and we can provide you with an FAQ about how to make that happen. There's also a PDF splitter. A limitation to the Adobe API is that you kind of max out around 200-page documents. And so in order to have documents that maybe are 500, 1,000 pages, we integrated a PDF splitter into this solution so that it will split the document into multiple documents and then put them back together at the end of the swim lanes, providing a seamless user experience. So the user who is leveraging this technology never knows that that's happening to their document, that's all happening where they're not having to split their document, their large scale document, into multiple pages. Know that with technology, there can sometimes be limitations. We're constantly looking at ways to improve these barriers, but these are things that we are actively reviewing. Fillable forms, handwritten text, color contrast. These are areas where human intervention is most often needed. Note that with HTML as well, that's not ideal for all documents. These highly technical documents, legal documents, there are some barriers there, so just know that. With the PDF to PDF solution, it costs less than a penny a page for the use of AWS technology. This is all serverless technology. It's pay-as-you-go pricing. So you're not needing anything there, but then the Adobe API comes into the mix. It will never exceed 51 cents, but it can be significantly less than that per page. We can connect you with the right people. HTML, it's all native on AWS. So you're looking at about a penny a page for remediation if you're just using the PDF to HTML technologies. Know that we also have implementation support. Not everybody's going to say, hey, I got this open source code thing, let's go. I can immediately implement it, even though we did create very simple implementations, a 2-click implementation. It should take you, a limited amount of time to implement this. But know that we also have technology partners that are standing at the ready to help you with implementation. And so whatever it is that you need to support with that, to help you, align to those compliance deadlines and beyond, know that we've got technology partners that are available, whether that be from internal AWS teams or technology partners out in the community. Or if you have a technology partner that you work with, we can work with them to get to make sure that they get the code and answer any questions they have. Now, without further ado, I want to turn it over to Corey Tressler, who will highlight the Ohio State implementation.
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, everybody. I am Corey Tressler. I'm the Assistant Dean for Technology and Digital Programs here at the Ohio State University Libraries. So we were, as Colleen mentioned, the first to really engage with the CIC Center on this potential solution. And it was a really wonderful sprint that we did with them to get to where we initially were with the prototype. And so I'm going to talk through a little bit of where we're at in production and some changes that we've made locally, and then a little bit where we're going sort of next. So next slide, please. Oh, you can skip past this one too, sorry. So you saw Colleen's sort of schematic that was much prettier than mine, kind of showing the workflow of how you go through the S3 buckets, through the remediation process. I just want to highlight a few of the changes that we've made as you're looking at this sort of tree here. In that we have added a couple elements unique to our environment. So I'm in a university library. We have a lot of content, but we don't necessarily need to make this individual for every end user or sort of every employee in the libraries. We have specific repositories that we have service owners and teams that work on. So we don't need to scale access, if you will, with a large user interface. So some of the things that we're doing is a lot of batch processing of existing documents and content that was already there. And ingesting into our workflows as we're adding new content. So we have a couple different sort of use cases, if you will. As new content comes in, it is sort of onesie twosies. So we do have a little limited user interface, which I'll show you on the next slide. But then most of our stuff is done by batch processing behind the scenes. Some of the changes that we've made that are sort of documented here a little bit. So let's say you have a document and you upload it. The first thing it does is go through that ally checker, almost a pre-check, if you will, as you can see at the top of this chart. If for some reason, and this would be great if we had more documents in our environment that were like this, it doesn't flag on anything, meaning there's no errors in the pre-check. We developed in an ability to basically say, skip everything and let the end user that uploaded this submission or other know that. So provide a log of that report showing that it didn't have any errors and send it back to them and say, basically, you're good to go. So that was his first sort of element, because why spend the tokens or the money if it's already compliant? But again, when we're thinking of scale of hundreds of thousands of PDFs, we needed at least for it to check first. So that's sort of step one, where we made a slight alteration. So let's say it does need some help. It flagged on something. It starts to do very similar to what Colleen, shared in her diagram. It's calling the Adobe APIs for the auto tagging and the extraction of the images, charts, graphs, whatever it needs that has alt text. It's doing that work. When it gets to alt text, ours is handing off, and we're currently using Claude 4.5. We have customized our prompts based on our evaluation of how the output's coming. We have noticed that prompt sequencing matters in this case. You may have been on other webinars or read other articles that says AI prompt sequencing doesn't matter. We are seeing that it matters with alt text generation because of the standard of it and maybe other reasons. I don't know, but it seems to ultimately matter. So it works through that. When it sort of gets back to merging everything back together, you will see another, it could skip if it doesn't have any alt text to generate. So we've added sort of that feature because, again, why pay for it? But the other thing that we sort of noticed is there's an element of accessibility documentation where you're creating sort of a metadata title for the document that, again, able-sighted people are going to see the name of the document and then read the document. But screen readers often need an embedded title of the document in it. We created a skip step because a lot of our repository submitted elements already have good title and metadata titles. So why not skip it? Because if you've ever been to a library and used online resources, you'll notice that some journal articles or even books might have 5 to 6 pages at the front of the article, blank for purposes unknown, other than it was intentionally left blank. We've all seen those pages. Those blank pages cause some jumbling up of title generation, so we skip it if needed. Then it sort of packages everything back together and runs it one more time, the post check, and then gives the end user that created this, request, all the logs, if you will. Pre-check, what did it flag and went bad at, if you will, and then post-check, where was the success found, and are there any remaining issues? Some of the elements that we're seeing in production here are you may have 30 to 35 errors on the front end of a document. When it comes out, you may only have 1 error field or 0, and it's usually 1 or 2 things that you see. Colleen, if you go to the next slide, I believe this is just our very, very simple user interface. It's nothing fancy. Again, I am not in central IT anymore at Ohio State, so I am not trying to scale this for all of campus in an enterprise delivery mechanism. I am working with our central IT team on how they would do that. So I didn't build out a full user interface because I only had maybe a dozen people that needed access within the libraries. And a lot of our work is on the batch processing of the backside or on the sort of big side of this thing. So if you go to the next slide, I think we're back to the schematic again. So it sort of goes through this entire process. And then again, the thing that's really important for our side of things is we want to keep those logs too. So our check logs, the pre-check and post-check, we're storing all of that information so that we have it in case we have to do a human intervention. Because of our scale, we will not be doing sort of human completely in the loop of everything that we're doing here. We are creating a threshold, a comfort threshold, that if it is, say, 90 to 95% accurate or higher, based on the post check, we are going to post it. We have put disclaimers on our websites and part of our repositories that some of this work is being done with APIs or AI, and that there may be errors within it, and to report those to us, and we will have human intervention on those errors. The Adobe APIs are AI behind the scenes, so they're really end-to-end. This whole solution is leveraging AI in all of its capacity. If you go to the next slide, I have some results of things that we're seeing. We are in production for all new content. So as we're adding content to our repositories or into our environment, we are running it through the PDF remediator. We actually do have two tools that we've sort of separated out of this. The PDF remediator, again, that can do batch processing or individual one or two at a time. But we also, because of our needs in a library, created an alt text generator that can basically scale across our digital collection. So we have about 400 to 450,000 images in our digital collection, most without alt text. So again, think we could have a standalone tool to basically create that at scale. Now, in production, we don't use the alt text generator because writing alt text on, say, one image or two images at a time really isn't that heavy of a lift as long as you're following the standards. So we only really use that for batch processing. But what you see on this slide is some of our results. So as you've seen in the presentation thus far, our current vendor solutions are actually more between $4 to $6 per page, so really high. If we were to outsource all of this work, our AI solution is about 6 cents a page and runs really consistently at that or lower. And that is combining the Adobe solutions with the AWS hosting and running the LLMs there. Time is money is basically on the left side, those bottom two bullets. We all know that remediating, say, a 100-page PDF takes hours, if not days. This solution is seconds to a couple minutes, literally consistently every time. The right side is some of the results we're seeing at scale, because we've run a few thousand documents through this, and we've run lots of images through the alt text generation, where you see 52% of the accessibility checks. So think every category is one check area. About half of those fail. Every time we put a PDF through it. When we come out, 93 to 95% of those pass. So think each one of the areas. And then the PDFs that we have reached 90% or higher are the vast majority of them. Some of the things that we see some issues with, older PDFs. So think late 90s, when we were doing export to PDF in Microsoft Word. There just really wasn't a lot of accessibility features built into Word at that time. Now, Microsoft has done great work since then. And if y'all are Microsoft campuses, they even have accessibility sort of check systems in place in their client-based software. So think PowerPoint or Word, that will tell you maybe where some of your errors are. Doing great work there on the Microsoft side. OCR anomalies. So again, think older OCR technology. We have things in our collections that maybe every page except two of them, the OCR worked, but those 2 pages became flat, images. It cannot read those. So we need to re-OCR some things and then put it through this to get the results that we need. And then my last bullet, the biggest challenge that we face, honestly, above everything else, is more around the math and scientific figures and equations. We are exploring multiple other API and AI tools that have come onto the market really within the last 12 months because we started this project about 18 months ago with AWS that weren't even available at the time when we were, prototyping and finding solutions. So there are a couple other things out in the market. What is nice about this and this solution is this is a workflow solution, meaning if we can find a really good AI tool that does amazing work around math equations or scientific figures, we can plug the API into this workflow to help and sort of add to the remediation tool. It doesn't have to just be this forever. So that is something we are exploring right now just to see where we're going to get the consistency like we're already doing with the Adobe side of the tools and the LLM side around those math equations and scientific figures, just because they're complex. So that's where we are. Again, we're in production on everything new that we're hosting. Within the next couple weeks to months, we will be batch processing at scale. We have basically been doing a lot of work to build confidence amongst our faculty and staff in the libraries because this is a heavy use of AI. We want to ensure that this wasn't replacing anybody's job because we weren't scaled and we can't afford to scale up to do that with human intervention. So that is not one factor. And we're building that trust. Like, look at the output. The output's getting really consistent. It's better than where we were. We're doing a lot with that. We are continuing to explore new models on the LLM side as we get access, and want to make sure, again, that output is consistent. And then the biggest thing I think we're doing, other than the batch processing of all these things that we have, we are starting to engage in usability testing with those people that inherently use screen readers to ensure that the output that we feel that we're getting, and that is very positive and consistent, is consistent with their experience. Because their experience is what matters here. It's not my experience, it's theirs. So I want to ensure that they have access on those screen readers in a way that is, again, like experience to those that are ably sighted. Will we be perfect? No, but I need their feedback to understand where maybe some of our hiccups are. The other element, I'm just sort of adding this, and then I'll give up my time here. The other element that is really important in some of this conversation is, what is really alt text? That is something that consistently comes up here at Ohio State, because we deal with highly intelligent faculty members that are experts in their domain, some of the top in their field in the world. They know their content, right? And if they have an image, graph, or chart, they know everything about that image, graph, or chart. That is not alt text. We don't need the long description. The rest of your article, your paper, is that, right? We need just true alt text that has a standard. So we have been having a lot of those conversations, because there are just a number of faculty, because of their domain and their expertise, that want to over alt text it, like do these giant descriptions. And it's like, that's not alt text. That doesn't meet the rules that we're applying this to. So we are doing some socialization, some training on that. So not only can they better create their own, but they have better expectations of what tools like this would be able to do. So they're not saying, well, that's not enough. Well, that is enough in the standard of the law. So those are just a couple of the things that we continue to massage and work through. And we're starting to explore some things with descriptive audio, text, and transcription too. So to be determined in the future webinar or other, that we might have more information in that space. But I'll hand it back to Colleen.
Well, thanks so much, Corey. One question for you before you go, and then we'll get to some more questions at the end. But there was one question that came up in the chat, just about how Ohio State has leveraged your legal counsel on staff around the DOJ guidelines and your approach.
Yep. So that is a great question. I think the interpretation of the rules are, and Jonathan probably can speak way better than me at this than I can, are something that took a little while for research institutions and probably all public institutions to understand. Ohio State's interpretation of the rule, as I see it, is that we are making good faith effort before April 2026 to make sure our systems, our websites, and everything that's within the rules right now is as compliant as possible. On April 2026, the focus will be on new content, and then actively working and documenting our progress on legacy content that was posted before April 2026. But by no means are we running with the illegal interpretation that every bit of content at a place like Ohio State needs to be done by April of 2026. Because again, I'm focusing on the libraries, which has hundreds of thousands, millions of pages of stuff, hundreds of thousands of images. The learning management system, which is a former life of mine I used to help manage, those are wild spaces with a lot of, faculty independence on what is in their area in their learning management system. So scaling that is super complex. But that is our interpretation of anything new posted, regardless of password protection behind shibboleth or other walls, should be accessible, and then documented progress on previous legacy information.
Excellent.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. More to come on those questions here in a moment. But without further ado, I want to invite our next speaker to join us to tell us a little bit about the CSU Fullerton journey, but also being able to pop up and talk a little bit about how you're seeing the broader CSU implementation of this solution. So Willie, over to you.
Thank you, Colleen. Hope everybody can hear me all right. Good morning. My name is Willie Peng. I'm currently serving a role as Associate VP for Academic Technology in the Division of Information Technology. Next slides, please. So what about Fullerton? What about CSU? One of the things we've done so far is we as CSU, it's a 23 campuses, California State University systems. When we look at this particular technology, we're like, wow, how can we apply this to the other campuses? As you can see, Cal State Systems, it's a 23 campus systems with over 460,000 students. And our campuses start from all the way from Humboldt to San Diego. So it's pretty much all over the place within CSUs. Even though we're 23 campuses, next slides, please. We do a lot of things in collaborations, not just from technology perspective, from systems, also from the accessibility technologies. So ATI was launched back in 2006. And the plan was to develop a plan, a guidance, a resource, and practice to make information and communication technologies such as websites, instructional materials, technology systems accessible to students, faculty, staff, and public accordance to the CSU policy and state and federal disability laws. Next slide, please. So within the ATI, as you can see from the previous one, we do have a lot of collaborations. And one of those collaborations is tools. Tools to see whether our website is accessible or not, to see whether our instructional materials are accessible. So when we look at this technology that was kind of introduced to us back in March 2025 from AWS to our CIO Council, we start thinking, can this be scalable? Can we deploy this not just from a single campus and then expand it across the entire CSUs? So we start looking at some possibilities, whether it is, can this be set up as a single sign-on? Can this be set up with a different kind of models? Just like Corey mentioned, right? You took the base solutions and you look at it, the code, and you see what can I do. The good thing about this, and then definitely thanks to ASU, thanks to AWS, and then making this open source where everybody can look at the code and then see what's feasible to them. So for us, from a CSU perspective, we start looking at SSOs. The good thing about using AWS is within the Cognito, and some of you may already start looking at those, is there are many plugins that you can do. Single sign-on is something that within Cognito that you can configure, not just from an intro ID perspective, but also in Shibboleth. And one of the other thing is we decide to see, okay, understand this particular sessions where the initial configuration was to limit the number of users or number of documents. So we start tweaking some of the config. One of the things that we've done so far is our initial plan is to make it not to make a lot of code changes, leverage the current attributes that's already been provisioned, and then see what we can do out of it. So we made our own initial proof of concept in July, September, launched it within our own campus in October for Fullerton, since we want to run some tests in our own space and run another campus-wide kind of soft launch in November for us, and then December for the CSUs, and just January, in the middle of the January, we'll fully launch this solutions for the entire CSUs. Next slides, please. So this is a recording, and I'll walk through this. The initial logins, one of the things that we've done within the CSUs is we actually do have an IDP proxy. So everybody within the CSU can log in once they pick the campus. And then this is through the Shibboleth and Shibboleth single sign-on. As you can see, this is a very similar screen as all the other base config. One of the things we did modified is we modify as far as instead of having individual documents, we're able to make it the document to be able to do a bulk upload. And then some of the config that I talk about it that we change is instead of decrementing the documents when the documents being uploaded, we use that as the leverage to see how many documents that you can use as a bulk upload. One of the other configurations that we made is, I know that some of the system, when we start doing bulk upload, it takes so long to for the systems to process. It might take 5-10 minutes or so. As you can see, multiple documents uploaded, and so it takes some time for system to remediate the doc. So in this case, user can actually come back and then pick up their documentation. We leverage the S3 file lifecycle. So after 3 days or after however many days you can configure on your own file content, those documents can be then deleted from the S3 buckets. Since we make this into a system-wide configurations, I start creating some administrative page. So each of the campuses can actually leverage their user role. So we end up assigning the executive sponsors to be the power user. So those power users can then assign individual ATI users to have a larger quota. Is the faculties usually they'll upload about 5 to somewhere between 1 to 5 documents, depends on their lectures. But ATI users, or we call it, they're doing a lot more remediations. So we're giving them a larger quota, somewhere between 15 to 25 PDF documents, so they can upload those documents all at the same time and come back later and pick up those documentations. So that's pretty much some of those features we kind of added into the system. Again, all the things on the back end, we want to keep it as streamlined as possible, the same. We only change the logic. All right, next page, slides, please. One of the other things we've done is we embedded a Google Analytics, because our campus is a Google Analytics shop. So as you can see, from the very beginning, I think this is the last 90 days or the last 60 days of how we launched the our PDF remediation app. So the highlights, as you can see on the initial, on the right-hand side of the corner side, that is where we make the initial launch within the CSU campuses. Next slides, please. So some of these are some of the features that's added. Single sign-on using the plugins within Cognitos. We modify the user role, so it depends on the user. They will have different kind of quota size. Oh, I think we're switching back to the slides. We made it a bulk file upload capability. We make some accessibility report changes so people can print it instead of looking at the JSON files. I'll have to reach out to Corey. Corey, I'm going to pick your brain as far as your tagging on bulk files. We make some file retentions using the S3 bucket sessions, making an admin role, so giving out the administrator privilege and user management to each of the individual campuses. We did talk to Adobe to increase our API request per minute count, so we can handle the large amount of data sets. And then, of course, the Google Analytics. I'll answer maybe a couple questions related to some of the costs. Just overall, from we first initiated our applications, just for, I actually have run 2 different kind of models, instances within us. So for the CSU prod, we have over 250 users who currently signing. We have over about 600, close to 700 documents. And my average, I actually counted, I'm not using the count per page cost, just because I can only count how many document is being uploaded, and then each document can have so many different pages. but including, and then this is by all means, including the AWS infrastructure costs. Initially, if you launch a plain PDF remediations with nothing in there, it's probably going to cost about less than $30 or so, just if you establish the AWS accounts. But for overall, my documents, I do a per document cost. It's 14 cents per document for that particular CSU instance. For Fullerton, I have over 170 users who's currently using them right now. And I have over 1,000 documents who being processed. And then initially, it could just because the way how I'm implementing it, my average documents per this cost is 28 cents. So just I wanna kind of put that into a context. So the initial just getting the system up and running without much of the effort, it's going to be less than $20 per month if you just kind of set up an AWS account and put all those configurations and all the settings in there. And of course, I do want to thanks for all the people who contributed to this calling ITO.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Willie. So one quick question for you that came up in the Q&A is, you may have briefly mentioned this, but when you kind of get to a point with the code and everything, are you planning to open source elements of the enhancements that you have added to the solution as well?
Yes, we are currently cleaning up our code, and we're going to put it onto our GitHub.
That's awesome.
So yes, this will be available for people who want to implement this. And if you have any questions, I know some of the configs are not particularly a code base, it's a configuration base. If you're a shibboleth shop, I know configuring the service provider metadata is a little bit of tricky, so you can reach out to me. I'll show you how to configure the SP metadata.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for giving those insights. It's really interesting to kind of think about this from a single campus or a single department implementation, and then bopping up to think about it from a system-wide implementation. But that's one of the benefits and flexibilities of open source code, and how you can kind of think about this in your own image and likeness to leverage it. So really quick before we get to, hopefully about 8 minutes of open Q&A, and I'll be leveraging some of the questions that have happened or that have come from the Slack, the Q&A function. But really, we want people to leverage the open source code. So that is readily available to you. Tom has been putting in the chat multiple links where you can access the code, you can access more information about it. If you are not a highly, well-versed tech person and you're thinking open source code, what am I going to do in GitHub? Contact us, let us know if you and your team need additional insights. We can point you in the right direction of resources and walk you through it. But we also encourage people to dive in, try it, stand up an AWS environment, try the open source code, give it a shot. I guarantee you'll probably get much further along than you maybe initially think that you would. Reminder about the UI. You can try these solutions on that website, remediate-pdf.com. And if you need to contact your Adobe rep, if you are looking for that PDF to PDF remediation, and you're saying, I'm not exactly sure who to contact at Adobe, I can't find the right person, let us know. We can point you in the right direction. I talk to the folks at Adobe every single day, and we have a very symbiotic relationship here, and are happy to point you in the right direction. And then be thinking about that remediation. As Jonathan had mentioned, planning is the most important, but also starting. It's great to have a plan, but make sure you're taking action and determine that deployment methodology that works best for your own institution, whether that be internal or bringing in external partners, which sometimes those contracting processes can take some time. So be thinking about that. But it is important to get started ASAP. So what I want to do is I want to invite our panelists back on camera for some Q&A. So for maybe Willie, I'll start with you on this question. So in kind of thinking a little bit about change management, there's a number of questions that people have had about, you said you've got like 180 people leveraging your platform. How have you taught them? What are the resources you have given them to make them successful?
So it is definitely through a lot of communications within the campus. We do have our accessibility group. We do also have our ATI website that we publish the tools that we have. We announce it that these tools is going to make available. So it is definitely communications, and creating documentations, how to. So and then we spread the words, talking to the deans, talking to the chairs, talking to our instructional designers, everybody that we know of. So I am the campus official spammer. That's what I call it. But that's the way it is.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So Corey, what has been the method for your team since you've remediated a lot of documents? What has been the method that when you find errors where the solution isn't able to remediate or has a hiccup, then what? What do you do?
Sure. So one of the things that we're doing is tracking those logs of sort of the success rate and the post check, sort of where it's at. If it falls beneath, say, a 90% threshold of success, we have one accessibility expert within the library, sort of our lead for that, and she will jump in and do manual intervention and sort of fix those one or two errors that are found if something's below, say, a 90% success threshold on that second post check. So we are keeping some humans in the loop. And then analyzing why, if it was really off for some reason. Again, that's where was it an OCR issue that was something that was outside the document? Just where did it come from? Because in the libraries, we're processing both born digital, so think something that was created in Microsoft Word or in Adobe InDesign or whatever, and things that we've digitized, so that we have taken this rare book and put it through our digitization process. So those are two different pathways that could have different issues with them on the way to the remediation tool.
Great, thank you. So Jonathan, what recommendation do you have, to bring in, people into the process that are requiring screen readers? How can we best integrate them into this journey of, making sure that the technology-based solutions are meeting the needs?
I love that question. It's an excellent question and super pertinent as well. Over 30% of the population has a disability of some kind, and the aging population, as you get older, if you're lucky, you will have a disability at some point, right? So people with disabilities are all around us. It's part of our culture. It's part of our world. Tapping into their experiences and their understanding is key. So how do you do that? There's communities of folks with disabilities within your institution. You should tap into that. Maybe even consider building a champions group, an accessibility champions group that can help sort of escalate and bring visibility to these different challenges that folks have. Another opportunity is partnering with global disability organizations. Like a great one is World Institute on Disability, for example, who has a great pool of different testers that can work with you and partner with you to help understand the sort of different parts and aspects of the user experience, right? So these are two things. Tap into your internal community, but also understand that there's a huge, strong community of global accessibility, disability experts that are there to help you, right? If you need help with something, reach out, right? We're here to help. It all starts with a conversation and listening. And I love the sort of aspect of a lot of the different things that Corey and Willie were talking about really relates to design thinking, which is listening before you make decisions and understanding the user experience of those different users before you go ahead and develop things. All right, so tap into your community. It's right there. They want to work with you, and that's the best solution I can recommend.
Amazing, thank you. So Corey, a question for you from one of the attendees is, what feedback have you received so far from user testing?
So we haven't gotten deep into the user testing with those using screen readers. Our semester just started here, and we just had a pretty large winter storm. So we are kicking off, basically following what Jonathan just shared on identifying those groups and populations within our environment, and then engaging with them to do, UX, evaluations of that. In general, though, I will say it's been positive. We had to massage some of the alt text prompting just based on our own desires to leave out, say, demographics of individuals in a photo. It's not really needed per the standard, things like that. So most of our feedback thus far has been amongst our faculty and staff in the libraries. We are about to launch that usability study, if you will.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's an important component that this is ongoing. This isn't even a one and done thing. That there's ongoing opportunities for continued enhancements to the solution and how the product it's ultimately delivering. So, Willie, how have you done batch testing on the back end of the solution, knowing that that's one of the enhancements that you've delivered as well?
Yeah. So we actually leverage the existing backend solutions. The Lambda will actually pick up all those files and then they just process on the backend. There's really nothing that I have to do. The only thing that we made modification is we allow batch uploads via the code, the UI code. So yeah, batch it away.
Perfect. And I saw there was another question in the Q&A also that the solution, it's currently available enterprise-wide at the CSU, or it's going to be rolled out?
It is enterprise-wide within CSU. We made a soft launch in December, and then with a public GA in January, where all the executive sponsors within the CSU are notified. We do have a community of practice, which we meet monthly, that they're also notified. So all the CSU campuses know about the solution. They start building their own documentations, leveraging some of the default docs that we provided. So this is actually sharing with all the 23 campuses, including the Chancellor's Office.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So Corey, maps are a big thing within a library ecosystem. I see a question sort of asking a little bit about, how maybe you've handled maps.
Maps are a challenge, similar to music scores and back to science equations and math equations. Maps are complex on every level, meaning if you're using ArcGIS, that output is very complex because sometimes it's layered and it's usually layered with multiple data forms, meaning there could be overlays of different data that pops up and things like that. And then digitization of, say, older maps also is super complex. So we are working through that. But those are some of the ones that are just incredibly challenging with what's out there currently, but also challenging within to fit in the guidelines that are out there and the standards because they're maps. There's so much data and input on them and they're so visual. So we work through those similar to how we have a cartoon library, how we do cartoons. There's just things, music scores, stuff that pops up that isn't your journal article that we host pretty heavily in the libraries that we just we work through it. So I don't have a great answer there. Other than we're working through it and we have still exceptions in place for a lot of those map elements.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's important for people when they're thinking about remediation is what is the most, the most common format of document that you have in your repository. And a lot of times we can get caught in the fringes of what that might look like, but sometimes the most common ones are those journal-like articles, and a technology-based solution may be the right fit right now to streamline operations. So everybody, we're at 11:01. We want to thank everybody for joining us on this webinar. It's been a true joy to have you. We also have a lot of other solutions that are available open source. So as you're on your technology and innovation journey, know that we at the ASU Cloud Innovation Center and the US Cloud Innovation Center program are here to support. We will have the resources available after this webinar for you to rewatch any component of this and all the links available to you. But thank you again so much. We hope you'll solve your problems, some of your challenges with technology, and we look forward to catching up with you next time as we talk about more amazing things happening across the public sector world. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.